Okay, so I'm going to start and do a few videos hopefully for this chapter 8. The first one I'm going to do is number 6, and we're supposed to consider the following time series data. And we're supposed to construct a time series plot and what kind of pattern exists in the data, develop a 3-week moving average for the time series, compute the MSE and a forecast for week 8, use alpha 0.2 to compute the exponential smoothing values for the time series, compute the MSE and a forecast for week 8 as well, and then we'll compare the 3-week moving average with the exponential smoothing forecast with an alpha of 0.2, which appears to provide the better forecast based on the MSE, and then use trial and error to find a value of the exponential smoothing coefficient that results in a smaller MSE than you calculated for alpha 0.2. Alright, so what I did is I just put the data in here, and what we do is to get a graph, we just go insert graph, and we want the scatter graph, and so we go okay, and that's basically the time series. Okay, so we have weeks 1 or months 1 through 7, and then we have each plot at those different time points. Now I noticed that they show month here, but they say a 3-week. It should be either a 3-month here or weeks up here. Alright, so then we're supposed to develop a 3-week moving average. So I'm going to kind of show you 2 different ways. First way is kind of just using the equations in the book. So this is our data. Now a 3-week moving average, what we're going to do is we're going to skip the first 3 weeks, and then the next item is going to be basically the average of those first 3 weeks. And that's what we do here. We take the average of B2 through B4, and that gives us that. And then we do the same thing down below. We take the average of the next 3 weeks, so we take the average of those 3 weeks, which is what we have here. And we do the next 3 and the next 3. And the cool thing is once we type the first one in, all we have to do is hit Control D, and we have all of them done. Now I went on down a little bit further, which would be technically week 8, because I'm forecasting just based on this. And that's one of the steps we're going to kind of show how we get that over here. But first what we're going to do is continue on, because now we also have to find the MSE. Well, to get the MSE, first we have to calculate the forecast error. And that is just taking this point minus this point, and we have that. So it's just B5 minus C5. Again, Control D down, B6 minus C6, B7 minus C7, and B8 minus C8. And those give us then our forecast error. Then we need to find the squared forecast error, and that just takes and squares each one of these. D5 squared, D6, D7, D8, all that squared. And then to find the MSE, which is the mean square error, what we have to do is 2 ways. We can first find the total, and which is 110, and we just sum those 4 values. And then we take 110 divided by 4, which is 27.5, or the easier way probably is just the average of those 4 items there, and that's what I did here. So that gives me the mean square error of 27.5. Now it also asks us to forecast week 8. Now remember, week 8 is just going to be the y value, y8, and that's just going to be the mean of the 3 previous weeks, and that's just the week 5 plus week 6 plus week 7 divided by 3, and that gives us 19, or what we did here was we just took the average of week 5, 6, 7 and put it here, and that's what we have here. So that's how you would do this kind of quote longhand. Now we can get this part a little quicker. Now that really doesn't matter so much unless you have a bigger set of data, because it's easy to type the first one in, Control D down, and then work our way over. But we can do it. We can use data analysis. We're doing the moving average, so we use moving average. So what I've done is I copied the data back over here, so I'm going to use the values. Now the interval, that's going to be like if we did a 3-week moving, this would be 3. If we're doing a 4-week, we'd put 4. If we're doing 6-week, we'd do 6. Just whatever the problem kind of shows us. And then I'm going to put the output in the appropriate place. So the reason why I chose, okay, let's do this here so we can see it does something. Alright, so moving. Make sure I have the right data again. 3-week, and then I'm going to start it in the for L2 because, it's in week 2, and so we're going to start it right here. And the reason why we're going to start it there is because we always skip the first week, and then we go down to the next one. And so here, we skip the first one, and we go to the next one. Well, because it's moving of 3 weeks, really it puts it down here, but the way Excel works, you put it in the one below that, and then you say you want the chart output and hit enter, and then it kind of shows you what we have here. So it says, hey, there's not 3 weeks here, so that's not applicable. There's not 3 weeks, up there, so that's not applicable. So that's our first one. And lo and behold, look at that. It's doing the same thing as I did over here. I just took the average of the first 3, and it's taking the average of the first 3. Now the cool thing about this is it gives us the graph now. It shows us the actual data and then the forecast data based on what we have here. Okay. Now, another cool thing is it does give us that forecast value of 19. But if we really have to find an MSE, for instance, what we really need to do then is we still have to do all of those items there. I'll just copy the whole thing. We really do have to find the forecast error, the squared, all that. So I'll just, paste it over there. But it got us this here part here. Forecast error is really easy. Again, you just take that minus that. We have that. The squared is going to be that. Okay. All right. So that gives us that. So I think I'm going to pause here because now I'm going to go to the next thing. All right. So going back to see what our next one is, we're supposed to go to alpha of 0.2. Now I noticed when I got back here, I forgot to mention what kind of pattern exists in the data here. And this is really just kind of all kind of bouncing back and forth across to kind of a horizontal line. So this would be more of a horizontal pattern here. So I forgot to mention that when I was doing it until I came back here and saw this. So alpha 0.2. All right, so we're going to use the same data values. And again, I'll do it by longhand first, and then I'll use the computer to kind of, or Excel to kind of show you what it is. So really what we're looking at is we're looking for what is the next position. So the y of t plus 1. So we're going to take our alpha value, which is that 0.2, times the y of t prior, the previous one, plus 1 minus the alpha, which is the dampening. Remember, damping is 1 minus alpha. And then times the yt of hat, which is the prior. And so what we're doing here is the first one in this case is going to be directly from the value here. Then the next one is when we start applying these equations. So we're going to take the alpha of 0.2 times B3, which is right here, 13, and then plus 1 minus 0.2, which is a damping factor, which is 0.8, times C3, which is the value basically right above that, and the 24, and then we hit enter, and that gives us this value. And then we can go down to the next one, and it's just going to be basically moving everything down. So instead of B3 and C3, now it's going to be B4 and C4. But we're using the same 0.2 and the 0.8, and then we keep going down and down and down. And basically, again, after you type that first one with the equation, you can just hit Control D and copy down. And the cool thing again is we can forecast already. We don't have to actually do anything since we've already put the equation in, we forecasted. But we still need the error and the squared forecast error because we're going to find that MSE again. So that again is just the B3 minus C3 on down. Then we square those values by just taking each of the previous columns times itself. And then we sum them up and get our total. And then our MSE then is just basically the average of those items there. Or if you take and you can use the total divided by the number of items here, but it's just easier to use that average function so we don't actually have to worry about counting how many there are in case there's a bunch of them. And that sum, that's, some people are going to round it 252.8, and when you divide by the proper number, you're not going to get the same accuracy. So you always want to use as many decimal places as are here and just reference the cell before or whatever like that. And then if we wanted to forecast, again, what we're going to do is we're going to take for Y8, which is basically going to be this point here, the 8th week, we're going to take the alpha 0.2 times the Y7, which was the 15, plus 1 minus alpha, which is our 0.8, or the damping factor, times the Y7. Well, not really. It's Y7 hat. I couldn't draw the hat. That's right. Which is the 20.15. Roughly again, and so we get the 19.122, which is the same thing we get here. So this is kind of the forecast, and again, these should be hats. I wonder if I can actually get those. So that's going to be a hat. and that's going to be a hat. So that's what they are, and then the y is just going to be that y value. All right, so that's again doing it longhand, and again we have to kind of do those last two columns so we can find that MSE, because that's what they're asking us to do eventually. But what if we didn't remember how to do this and didn't know what we're doing here? Well, what we can do is we can again use data analysis, and now we're going to use exponential smoothing. Okay. All right, so where are we at? So let's say we're going to do this. We're going to say alpha of 0.2. So the damping factor is going to be 1 minus that, so that's going to be 0.8. It's going to have a label. Did I put labels? No, I didn't. I better put all of them in there then. So then output range is going to start right there. We want the chart, and it's also going to give us a nice picture. And as it said, it hides it, and so now we can put that down here. And if we notice, we get the same values as we did over here, but it just gave it to us like boom. We didn't have to worry about anything. We didn't have to remember equations or anything like that. Now the cool thing is it still puts those equations up here. So if we didn't understand what the equation was, it would tell us. Plus at this point we can also say, hey, Control D, and it gives us a forecast for that week 8 that it was asking for as well. Now again, we have to do all of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that and I'm going to paste it in here. And so we get basically again the same numbers as we did here, which is what we expect since it's the same data. Now if we remember here, it says now which provides a better forecast. Well, our MSE here was 27.5. Here it was 42. The lower the MSE, the better. So in this case, it was the 3-week moving average that was better than the exponential smoothing. Now they ask us for the next part is to use trial and error to find a smoothing coefficient of alpha that's smaller MSE than what you calculated for the 0.2. Well, all we have to do is we start just plugging in values of 0.1, and all we do again is we're going to just go in here and say, okay, well, we're going to do data analysis exponential smoothing. Now for 0.1, that's going to be a 0.9. We're going to put it into the output range, and let's put it right here. Oops, right here. Oops, I'm totally messing this one up. We better select this as our data, and then we better put the forecast here. And we want chart output, so that will work. And basically it's going to give us the same chart we have already down here. That makes it go up higher, so 0.1 is not what we want. So we do 0.3, and if we do 0.3, we can see 0.3 and 0.7. We get down to 39.854, which is lower than 42.14. So just playing with those two around the 0.2 with the 0.1 and then above at 0.3, we got values that were lower. And again, it's nice. It shows you the curves for the forecast as well as actual. And so that's kind of how I would do these kind of problems for this simple stuff, the exponential smoothing with alpha, 3-week moving, or if you wanted to do a 4-week, all you do is you just do the first 4 instead of the first 3, and so then your first one would be actually here with the average of those first 4. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.